The village of Adam lay nestled between the great Okom forest and the rolling hills of the Aburi mountains. Life here was simple yet difficult. The villagers tilled the land, fished in the nearby river, and lived in small mud huts with thatched roofs. It was a place where fate was believed to be set at birth, where a child born into poverty would die in poverty, just as a child born into wealth would know no hunger. It was in this village that Kwame was born, the son of a struggling widow, Ajoa. His father, a poor fisherman, had drowned in a storm before Kwame's birth, leaving Ajoa to raise her son alone. She worked tirelessly in the fields, her hands calloused from years of famine, yet she barely earned enough to feed them. The village elders often shook their heads when they saw Kwame. "This boy's fate is sealed," they would whisper. Like his father before him, he will know only hardship. But from a young age, Kwame was different. He had a hunger, not just for food, but for knowledge. While other children played by the river, he sat outside the hut of old Nana Kofi, the village healer. The old man mixed herbs, whispered incantations, and healed the sick with remedies passed down for generations. Kwame watched in fascination, asking endless questions about the plants, their uses, and the illnesses they could cure. Nana Kofi chuckled one day and said, "You have the eyes of a seeker, boy. But seeking knowledge is dangerous when you have no means to reach it." When Kwame was 10, fate struck cruelly. His mother fell terribly ill, burning with fever and too weak to stand. The villagers, bound by superstition, feared she had been cursed by the spirits and refused to help. Kwame ran to Nana Kofi's hut, but the healer had traveled to a neighboring village and would not return for days. Panic clawed at the boy's chest. He could not let his mother die, not like this. He closed his eyes and tried to remember the herbs Nana Kofi often used for fever. Bitter leaves, fever grass, bark from the mahogany tree. Summoning all his courage, Kwame ran into the dense forest. The Okom forest was feared by many. It was said to be home to spirits, wild animals, and unseen dangers. But Kwame had no choice. He searched frantically, recognizing some of the leaves from Nana Kofi's hut. As darkness fell, he heard rustling in the trees, perhaps an animal, or worse, a spirit. His heart pounded, but he refused to turn back empty-handed. By the time he returned, his arms were full of herbs, and his legs were scraped from thorny bushes. He boiled the leaves as he had seen Nana Kofi do and made his mother drink the bitter concoction. Then he sat by her side, refusing to sleep. The next morning, her fever broke. Word spread through the village of how Kwame, the poor widow's son, had healed his mother when no one else would. From that day, Kwame became a helper at Nana Kofi's hut. He ground herbs, bandaged wounds, and listened to the healer's wisdom. But Kwame did not just want to mix herbs. He wanted to understand why sickness happened. He wanted to learn how to heal not just with plants, but with knowledge. He had heard of doctors in the great cities, people who wore white coats and carried stethoscopes around their necks. One evening, as he helped Nana Kofi prepare a remedy, he asked, "Nana, what must a person do to become a doctor?" The old man chuckled. "Oh, my boy, doctors study in great schools, in places where books are more plentiful than trees. It takes many years, and much money." Kwame's heart sank. Money. That was something he did not have. Fate, however, had different plans. A traveling merchant named Mr. Obiola often passed through Adam, trading fabrics, spices, and tools. He had heard whispers of the boy who wanted to be a doctor. Curious, he called for Kwame. "You wish to study medicine?" the merchant asked. Kwame nodded eagerly. Mr. Obiola stroked his beard. "Education costs money, but determination is worth more. If you promise to study hard, I will pay for your schooling." Kwame could hardly believe it. His hands trembled as he took the books Mr. Obiola handed him. It was the first time he had ever touched a book of his own. School was far, a 2-hour walk each way, but Kwame did not care. He woke before dawn, helped his mother in the fields, then set off for school, often barefoot. When he returned, he studied under the dim glow of an oil lamp. Other children mocked him. A poor boy who thinks he can be a doctor. Huh. But Kwame ignored them. There were nights he went to bed hungry, days when his mother was too weak to walk, and times when he almost gave up. But he remembered her words, "Fate may shape a man, but a man can reshape his fate." After years of sacrifice, Kwame earned a scholarship to study medicine in the great city of Accra. Leaving his village was the hardest thing he had ever done, but he promised his mother, "I will return." City life was overwhelming. The buildings were tall, the streets noisy, and the books endless. But Kwame worked harder than ever. He stayed late in the library, studied during his lunch breaks, and volunteered at hospitals to learn more. Years passed. Kwame became Dr. Kwame Argumen, a qualified physician. He could have worked in any hospital in the city, earning a good salary and living in comfort. But he had made a promise. One morning, the villagers gathered, staring at a stranger who walked through the dirt roads in a crisp white coat. But he was no stranger. It was Kwame. He had returned, not just as a doctor, but with medical supplies, books, and plans to build the first ever health clinic in Adam. The same elders who once whispered about his doomed fate now bowed their heads in respect. The same children who had mocked him now sent their own sons and daughters to learn from him. And under the great baobab tree, his mother sat, watching her son heal the very people who once doubted him. She smiled and whispered, "Fate bows to those who dare to rise." Kwame had not just rewritten his destiny, he had carved a new path for generations to come.